mass shootings have returned because ain't that America? There was the shooting in Boulder, and then there was, of course, the shooting in Atlanta. Now that guy was just having a bad day. He was just having a rough day.
Well, clearly,
yeah. Don't you love it? Don't you love it when there's this mass shooter and the media and the cops pretty much make a dating profile for the guy? Don't you just like, they were always a little quiet but they were interested in massages. And it's like, are you serious? Is this really happening right now? Oh, he was just having a bad day. He told us he was having a bad day. He told us he was, we offered to take him to Burger King. We did that for one of the guys before. It worked out. A bad day? You want some Burger King? It's unreal.
Usually my bad day is just some light arson. That's usually what I do on my bad days.
And then you get it out of your system. You get it out of your system after that.
And then I'm out. Yeah. And then when the cops show up, I'm like, hey, guys, just had a breakup. So I thought I'd set a building on fire. No big deal. You don't need to actually take me to prison or anything. I'm just having a bad day. And, and then they let you go. That's the bad day pass
the bad day pass
that you see at all the crime shows.
But I wanted to share this. So the shooting in Colorado, some of y'all who tune into the show regularly may remember that we had on cellist Joy Adams. She's a professional cellist. She was part of the Elijah McClain visual, the string visual that they had for Elijah McClain, which they had because Elijah McClain would play violin for the stray cats in the neighborhood. And police saw that and said, this must be destroyed. So she was on the show. And the reason I bring her up is because the shooting that happened in Boulder was at her grocery store, the grocery store she shops at. And she knew some of the victims. I have not been in touch with her. I just saw her post on Instagram, but I just wanted to let people know who watch the show regularly that a guest of Get Your News On with Ron, who did a wonderful episode. We had a really wonderful chat about the visual. They let us know what was on. They knew the that was very close to home for them, literally. So so that's something. And now we're seeing all that buzz about are we going to do something? Is there actually going to be some type of common sense, quote unquote, weapons policy that's going to happen in the United States? And usually you see the same old theatrical grandstanding by Democrats, while Republicans kind of parrot the NRA like, no, in our cold dead hands. And then nothing happens. That's what's been going on for years. That's what continues to go on. But here's a way to make it even worse. Check this out. Siri, how can we find a way to make an awful situation really even worse? The Biden administration urges the Supreme Court to let cops enter homes and seize weapons, seize guns without a warrant.
What?
That's what they're trying to do. That's the answer. Let's have cops enter people's homes more. That'll fix this.
Wasn't that the issue with Breonna Taylor? Was no-knock warrants?
Yes, Krish. Yes.
So
you too are noticing the flaw in this idea. I mean, it sounds perfect. When you first recite it, you're like, how could this go wrong? A grossly over-militarized, legalized gang just entering people's homes at will. Surely this will solve violent mass shootings. Surely this will be. and then you step back a little bit and you think maybe this is a bad idea. This is so painfully American. Yeah. Hey, we have a really horrible situation. How can we have policy that'll make it even worse? There's got to be a way we can make this worse.
Boom. There it is. This is called the American Dream, Ron.
Because the American Dream. Because you have to be asleep to believe that anything like this would work.
We literally saw protests last year to prevent this stuff, and I believe like a lot of cities got rid of no-knock warrants specifically because they're awful, like specifically because they kill people, and now you want to basically do that. From what it looks like from the headlines, you want to do that for registered gun owners who are all about the castle law and their Second Amendment rights and all that kind of shit. And it's like, wait, you want to just actively invite a shootout into people's homes? Like that's basically what this is this is arguing for.
Let me ask you this before we move on to Los Angeles. Do you think we'll ever see any type of policy in our lifetimes? Any type of gun policy?
No, and that's mostly because I don't think like anybody's really gonna dissect the Second Amendment for what it is, or update it to the point where it makes sense to today's climate. Because
Sure.
the whole discussion around the Second Amendment is like, it is a really badly written amendment. It is a terribly written amendment that has commas in weird places, and you can basically interpret it in however you want. And my first thought when I read the amendment for what it was that I kind of felt like the founding fathers didn't really know what to do about the issue of guns. They just had a revolution, so making a statement that, oh, you can't push back any government just makes them sound like the government that they just fought off. So they wrote this amendment kind of confusingly so that there's a constant debate and constant argument over it nonstop.
Well, there's also that part that everybody ignores about the well-regulated part.
Oh, right.
Well, everybody kind of ignores that part. Yeah. Where it's like, well, the well-regulated, that's in there. I mean, I'm not one of these people who says like, oh, we just need to take everyone's guns away and that's it. Like, like it's not that simple. We don't. There are some countries where they pretty much don't have guns. I wish the United States could be that country, but when you look at what's going on in our country, when you look at the police, when you look at how militarized the United States is, that ain't going to happen anytime soon. That's not a realistic policy solution. It's just not going to happen. And you're dreaming if you think so. But there's still so many steps we could take that would make the situation way better. I mean, it's not going to solve everything completely, but so many things we could do. Voluntary buybacks, have people register their guns like it's a car, have mandatory classes, have better background checks when people purchase firearms, make it a little more difficult to buy a freaking firearm, ban certain types of weapons. I mean, all these things we could do. And we're doing nothing. We're doing nothing. Instead, it's just, we're not going to do anything, or we're going to over hyperbolize the solution to the point where you're just making a fool out of yourself. I mean, like Beto O'Rourke, when he got it, he's like, I'm going to take everyone's gun, that was just the result of he ran a focus group, and some dumb focus group told him, oh, it would look so cool if a guy from Texas says he's going to take everyone's gun. And of course, no one bought it. I don't even think his fans did, if he has any. So it was just grandstanding nonsense. And that's all you get. I mean, you just get grandstanding nonsense from one side or the other.
There was one bill that conservatives kind of lost their minds over, and I actually had one of my former teachers bring it up to me because he goes to the shooting range and all that, and he was like, "Tell me what you think about this bill." And for the most part, it does talk about a lot of things that you're talking about. It makes it a little bit more difficult for you to get access to a gun right away, which I have no problem with. It makes you renew your license, and you have to take a test to prove that you know what you're doing with the weapon. That means that it makes you take the gun seriously, because I've talked to a lot of gun owners, I've talked to a lot of collectors and avid shooters, and it's kind of like having a child. It's kind of like having a pet. You have to take care of it. You have to like shoot it regularly and clean it, and like, so
you have to, go with it to visit colleges and pick out the right school and
exactly.
You gotta make sure it's having a balanced diet. You gotta make sure
you pick up after it. You don't
want
those shells.
Don't feed it after midnight. Don't feed it after midnight.
That's when you get more guns. That's how
they multiply. Yep. That's how they multiply.
But they talked about like a lot of things about like you have to prove that you know what you're doing with it every year in order to have a registered weapon. The one oversight on it was like, you had to give them information about like where you store your gun exactly in your house, which kind of I felt like was a little bit of a privacy overreach.
Yeah,
And that's
I don't see the point of that either. Like, I don't see how
it
that
right.
really.
But to me, a lot of it made a whole lot of sense, especially if it's renewing your license every year. If we're gonna do it
Yeah,
for a car, why not do it for a gun, right? Like, so
that's how I feel.
that piece of legislation was on that piece of legislation was out in February. I mean, it didn't go anywhere, and the conservatives that I saw talking about it really got hung up on the privacy issues. And a lot of them were even saying, like, yeah, this is fine. Like, we're okay with this level of regulation where we have to renew it every year and we have to go through these specific channels. And if you have if you have a history of mental health concerns, then, maybe we are a little bit more stringent about that. And I don't have 100% answer on how to handle the mental health debate surrounding guns or anything, but I mean, it sounds reasonable. It doesn't sound like it's like, oh, we're coming in and taking away all the guns. Like it was a pretty reasonable bill, and it went nowhere. It went absolutely nowhere. Like, so
Yeah, I'd be curious. I mean, I'd have to look more into that. I mean, I think again, there's just so many things that have been done in other parts of the world that we could kind of look to and figure out what would work to have a better just policy around firearms. And we can certainly do way better than this. And it doesn't have to be we either do absolutely nothing or we have this ridiculous grandstanding of we're gonna come and take everyone's gun. That's not gonna happen. It's
yeah,
ridiculous to suggest.
and we're gonna
So
allow
why don't we
cops to
talk?
break down your doors.
Yeah, or we're gonna allow cops to just break into your house and take. How could that possibly go wrong? So it's something, and I think we should. I think we got to do the Isn't it? Is it Switzerland where it's like they have guns, but they're very strict on ammo? Like you can only
Oh, it
go. Is
might
that
be.
Switzerland that does that? Where it's like you have to go to a certain place to get ammunition, and there's limitations on the type of ammunition. I think we should do something like that, where
Yeah,
based on what you need it for, depends on your allotment of ammunition. I mean, obviously, somebody who has a gun because hunting is a big part of their food source because they live in a food desert. Obviously, that would be treated differently than a person who just kind of has it in case or whatever. So anyway, well,
yeah.
there we go. There we go.
It's the same. It's going to be the same cycle
It's going to
again.
be the same cycle of I
Yeah,
mean, you've already seen it. You've already seen Democrats grandstanding about we have to act, we have to act. Republicans going, nah, not in our dead hands.
yeah.
And it's going to lead to no action once again, or really shitty ideas like this one from the Biden administration of, hey, we're just going to let police go into your house and grab a gun without a warrant. What could possibly go wrong there? What could possibly go wrong? Great idea.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and